time with family, staying active, doing what you love. We understand how important it is to live your best life, even as times are changing. At Holzer, we strive to help every patient achieve their best health during every stage of life. With more options for care through in-person and virtual visits, we are dedicated to providing you with excellent care every time. Live your best life with Holzer.
Hello and welcome to the newest episode of Talk of the Town podcast, brought to you by Holzer Health System and the County Chamber of Commerce. I'm Executive Director Josh Wellington, and I am joined today by Kelly O'Brien from ECDI and the Women's Center of Business for Central Appalachia. That is a long title.
It's a very long title, but you did well.
I've been practicing.
Yes.
Just a little bit about, just so we can kind of let people know kind of the things we're going to be talking about today. You work in economic development, grant writing, things like that. Tell us a little bit about ECDI and kind of their history. They have a really neat backstory as to how they were founded. So if we can just talk a little bit about how they came to be, and then we'll get into kind of what they do.
Sure, absolutely. So ECDI was, they are the Economic and Community Development Institute. Their headquarters are in Columbus, Ohio. They were founded about 16 years ago by Ina Kinney. Ina, it was a Russian refugee, and her family came to the United States and to Ohio. Her father was an engineer in Russia, and those credentials don't necessarily transfer here to the United States. Right. And so he kind of started at the bottom of the ladder, the entrepreneurial ladder. And she saw the struggles that he faced and access to capital and those kind of things. So that really piqued her interest as she's kind of formidable and getting into her career later on in life. And she started a nonprofit and really work to fund those that are kind of at risk or the underbanked community with CDFI. So okay. ECDI is one of the largest CDFIs in the state of Ohio, and the second leading, I'll say, SBA micro intermediary micro loan lender in the nation. So we have a large portfolio. We borrow direct from the Treasury to lend that out to entrepreneurs in the state of Ohio that are underbanked, unbanked, and those in at-risk populations and communities such as Appalachia, Ohio.
So your background is in economic development.
Yep.
So ECDI your center has been open for how long?
So my center opened June 1st.
Okay.
I came on June 1st. I've spent 20 years in business and economic development, working with entrepreneurs and business owners from startup, kind of that I have an idea phase all the way through, I've been in business for a long time and I'm looking to sell. And so, preparing a business for that kind of exit strategy. So the whole gamut.
What area does your office cover kind of for our members?
So we cover Southern Ohio, kind of the tip of from Lawrence to Adams to Gallia up to Ross County, kind of if you draw a circle, and then into Kentucky, the Ashland and contiguous counties, and West Virginia. We partner with their Women's Business Center there in West Virginia to help kind of augment those of us that cross the river.
Right. Is small business right now, what is the environment? Do you see an uptick in small businesses coming into play, or is that kind of maybe going the other direction with more big box and things like that coming into smaller markets?
So right now, having done this for a long time, I see a lot of people, and I think maybe COVID magnified some of this, that are looking to start their own business or a side hustle or a side gig, just because maybe their hours are being cut by their employer because of supply chain issues. Or just, I'm going to take this into my own hands, and I'm kind of tired of relying on someone else to feed my family, kind
right.
of thing, and I can do this or I can do this better. And then I think we've got a lot in our region, people that are starting to really change their mindset and look local again, which is super encouraging and
Absolutely.
super exciting. And so we're starting to see that in pockets of the community. And it's kind of like if you build it, they will come, and they attract and become a magnet for one another and feed off each other. So I'm seeing a lot of that happen in our downtowns and main streets again, which I'm super encouraged by. So I would say with that, we're seeing a flurry of entrepreneurs that are at least exploring the option of starting their own business or side hustle.
I had a conversation with someone from Ashland area actually earlier this week, and we were talking residential and things like that in downtown areas. Is it kind of a chicken and egg kind of a thing when it comes to downtowns? Is it retail and business brings residential? Maybe the upper levels of stores and things like that, or is it residential brings business? Or is it kind of the
I think
chicken
that's
egg?
if we can figure out that secret sauce, we could go on a road show, Josh, to figure out which comes first, the chicken or the egg. But I think part of economic development, looking at that recruitment and attraction piece, is you have to have a vibrant downtown. You have to have a place where your people go. But then you also have to have housing, and places for them to live. So I'm not exactly sure what that formula looks like, because I think it's based on each scenario. Here in Southern Ohio, we are so used to commuting, like to go 30 minutes to go somewhere to eat, or so it's a little bit different than it is, in a metropolitan area. Definitely we need, kind of that residential in our downtowns, I think, because you get the constant foot traffic. But then as you see these brick and mortar shops popping up, that only increases and magnifies that.
When a new business starts, and you and I have also had a chance to talk to some other industry members when it comes to business, insurance, and things, people, I think, sometimes think that when you are starting your new business, it's you have the product and you get the funding, and then you start a business, and you just kind of you amplify, especially if it's one of those where it's an amplified side hustle. So you've been running a boutique out of your home, and now you're going into a brick and mortar store. But there is so much more that goes into whether it's marketing planning or insurance and things like that. Your office will work with small business owners, correct, that are starting up or even in existence now, to work with other industry leaders to figure out exactly what you need to make sure that you're not digging yourself into a hole.
No, absolutely. That's where we thrive. That's where our center flourishes, is working and coaching and mentoring business owners or entrepreneurs. That if you have the idea, I always like to say start with the expenses, because that's what we can get a firm grasp on, and then that's what you have to sell every month, to cover your costs. So always start there. But if you've got kind of that online shop or the side hustle, and you're looking to expand that, what it's going to take to get you to that next level, kind of that grow here piece. And that is where our center shines, is working. We offer training and then the one-on-one coaching that we will get in the weeds with a business owner. And again, it's all confidential. We don't share that information, but get in the weeds with a business owner to help them put their plan in place and ensure that they're successful.
And I think that's something that we've tried to also do here at the Chamber in the last 10 months, is be an arm to where, I've told a couple of business owners that have come in, they've, newer businesses, you can have the best steak, for example, but if it's getting the word out about what we call the sizzle, it's the reason why when an Outback commercial is on, you don't see it just sitting on the plate. It's on the fire. It's the presentation of it all. So we're here to help build promotional calendars and build marketing strategies and direct people to the avenues of the people who are members here that specifically work in those fields. So if you need targeted digital marketing, we can send you here. If you're better suited for newspaper or radio or billboard, we can send you places. But also having a relationship with your office, we can look at, well, this is what I need to do. We can look for some funding options with your help to try to get them to where they are able to thrive, instead of kind of taking that first step and then there's a big hole.
Right. So, as we would be looking at with an entrepreneur or a business owner, and there is that gap, I often say that there's a slow and then a grow, in that period. If they need access to capital or funding to get you to that next level, ECDI, we have funds available, loan funds. Because we're a micro lender, but we can lend $750 up all the way up to $500,000, with variable interest rates, but we're very competitive. And we like to say our sweet spots, kind of if the bank's not willing to take a risk, and startups are not necessarily the flavor of every bank. But that's where we would come in, and very similar application. We're going to need a business plan and cash flows. But as you kind of look through that growing period, that's where we're able to come in and help kind of augment, get you to that next level, whether that's a cash injection, whether that's using our professional advisors. We have contractors that
Right.
if I'm a generalist, but if I need someone that's really good at social media marketing, because that's what we've identified in your marketing strategy, we have a advisor network that we will pull from, that you'll be able to access that person, use them. We're subsidizing that person.
Right.
To help augment your plan.
COVID has had overwhelming, obviously, negative effects on multiple businesses. But what we have seen with the COVID situation is an abundance of funding from the federal level that is available in different programs, whether you're an existing business or you've been in business a year, you've been in business for 40 years. There's money out there available to people that has not been available before. Is your office able to help people in facilitating the process of getting in touch with people with those funds as well?
Sure, absolutely. So, I mean, there has been a huge amount of, I'll say, a windfall, of federal and state money that's coming to address the issues that COVID has caused. And there are certain platforms, whether that's Ohio Department of Development, they have a whole, kind of business help. I can give you the website. It's businesshelp.ohio.gov. That has their available grant programs right now to see if you qualify. And there is an application piece to that, and that's where we would come in to help you complete that application if you qualify. And then even some counties have some funding. And so as you're looking at your business and expanding or starting or growing, our office, myself and my staff, know the resources that are available in each county, and to kind of help direct and guide you, as you go through there.
On the downside of COVID, we've nationwide run into an employee shortage
Yes.
for whatever the reasons are. There's speculation in many directions, and dividing the facts from the reality, or the non-reality, I guess, the fiction is sometimes difficult. What kind of impact are small businesses and startups seeing when it comes to not the employee shortage? You've got businesses who have been around for decades that now are closing certain days or don't have the employees. I'm sure that impacts.
Well, it's
small
definitely
businesses and
impacting their
startups.
cash flow. Although I've seen some be very successful by modifying their hours, that they don't have. I'm specifically thinking of a couple that are in the restaurant industry. You can modify your hours to be open during your peak time, so you're capitalizing on that and keeping your overall overhead costs low. So if, yes, absolutely, the employee shortage, crunch, I'm not sure what word we want
Right.
to use there, is impacting businesses. And I like to tell businesses, as I'm working with them and through the opportunities or through the crisis that they're facing, is how can we objectively pull back and look at this, and is there a positive spin, because it is impacting their cash flows. They're not open, let's say, 5 or 6 days a week like they typically were, but are we able to look at your hours, that you're capturing the most amount of customers during peak times? I don't know the answer, for the worker shortage, but I would say look at your operations, look at how you're hiring people, look at your kind of retention thing. What are you doing to retain those good employees?
Right.
Because employees will leave for a quarter cent, a quarter more an hour. And so what are some things that you're doing to retain your good employees and the ones that you want to keep?
And that's something you and I had talked about. We're going to be starting up some lunch and learn programs through the chamber, and working with you on that. And that was one of the topics that we had discussed about wanting to talk about, is what can you do to retain your employees to where you're not in that constant rehire. And it's
because that is so costly.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, when you have, I'll never forget this. There was a business not here, but within driving distance from here, that normally you would think paid $10 an hour plus tips, let's say. And they were offering a $1,000 sign-on bonus to come to work there. And it's hard for a small business who maybe has 3 employees that you're paying minimum wage or close to it, because that's what you can do based on your business model or the situation that you're in, to compete with, your person can leave and get $1,000 sign-on bonus for somebody making $10 an hour. That's crazy.
Right.
So we want to be able to work with our local business members and owners and people who are leading some organizations in helping them to retain those people that they've had that are educated in the system that they're using and the product that they're selling, or whatever the case may be. So we want you to keep an eye out for that. We will be getting information out about the different lunch and learns. And if you are a representative of a business or a business owner who you think your services would benefit other businesses, chamber member businesses, we'd be more than happy to talk about getting you set up to present the lunch and learn as well. So that's coming up in the near future. Hopefully, we'll get that up and running. But you and I first met at an event with the Lieutenant Governor out at a local business, and just kind of talked about after that how we could work together. And I think that the way that your organization is set up and the way we are set up and kind of our goals, it just makes really good sense for our organizations to work together to benefit the community in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to think of, the chambers and economic development offices. You have the heartbeat of the community, the pulse on the ground of what's happening. And I want to be as close to that as possible so I can be reactive to the needs that we're seeing in the community and pull my resources from my office together to address those, whether that is training or one-on-one mentoring and coaching or whatever the need may be, that we can be very reactive within, a week's time to have something there to either stop the bleeding or,
Right.
Get them to where they need to be. So I appreciate the partnership, and I think it's going to be a great one as we move forward.
I think so. Not only do you work with small businesses and grants, things like that, but you also, your company has an arm that deals with 501s as well.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about kind of how you can help those who are maybe running a 501 and how they could benefit from a partnership with your company?
Sure. So ECDI, we have what we call our social enterprise group, and Courtney Hawkins is the director of that. And she works exclusively with those kind of social enterprises and 501s to address their, whether it be funding needs, set up campaigns, and really look at their operations. I would be happy to share her information with anyone that would need that. She is phenomenal at what she does, and will even work in for-profit businesses that are maybe looking for a social cause, that if they're looking to set up a campaign because they're raising money for something in the community, to help promote that, kind of create a campaign, create the vision and voice of that. She does a phenomenal job.
We talk about the grants and things, but I think that can sometimes be a wide net. What are some of the things that a business owner may need that ECDI can help them with funding for?
So the funding piece.
Yeah, like if they're looking at whether it's grants or loans, either way, what are some of the different things that people can get assistance with?
Sure. So any kind of, having done this for a long time, grants are 99.99% of them are reimbursement. We've had a couple, I'll say, that'll break the mold with COVID, but those are once in a lifetime opportunities. So they're reimbursement, whether you're going to be purchasing equipment, real estate, working capital, whatever that may be that you qualify for, they're going to be reimbursement. Or you're going to have show proof of how you've spent those funds. Well, sometimes the issue is that you need to purchase a $200,000 piece of equipment, and you don't have the $200,000 to even be reimbursed upon.
Right.
So that's where either the bank or us at ECDI would help, come in and fund that piece of equipment. Then you would have, your receipt to capture those grant funds on the reimbursement, and then we don't have a early payback penalty.
Okay.
So, you could then turn around and pay down that loan. In order to capture that. But those business plans, most grants, all of them have an application, and it's varying on what they require. But the business planning, the cash flows, kind of source and use, what you're going to be using that for, and how that makes sense. Some grants that are out there are based on job creation, and so working through those numbers to make sure that even though you're really wanting this grant money, can you hire 3 people? And if you say, yeah, I can hire 3 people, can you really pay them? You know,
Right.
does it make sense for your operation to even capture the grant money? Is it worth it in the end?
If you could give a piece of advice
Okay.
to someone who, let's say the boutique owner, they're selling kids' clothes out of their house, and the husband says, "Look," or the husband's selling, and the wife says, "Look, we're running out of room. Like, I really want to park my car in the garage, so we've got to do brick and mortar." What advice would you give to someone who just, for the first time in their life, says, "I think I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Where do I start?"
Right? Okay, so I know you guys can't see me, but my face is beaming because I get to work with these people all the time. My first piece of advice is start with the expenses. Always start with your expenses. Jot them down on a napkin, a piece of paper, for that brick and mortar location. You know, you're going to have rent, you're going to have utilities, you're going to have any kind of your communications, anything like that. Start there. Insurance. And then, you know, at the end of you see, oh, I've got $1,000 in expenses. I'm going to have to sell 100 items at $10 a piece just to cover my cost. That doesn't mean I've paid myself or anyone else, or, you know, so really start with the numbers. Because if you're not going to have a plan, and you're not going to be successful if you don't know your numbers. So always start with your numbers. And then really work on your brand. I like to say start with knowing who you are, because once you know who you are and what your business is, then you become confident in that. And that is, everything else will flow from that, because you've identified, you have an identity now.
Right.
So know your numbers, make sure that they make sense, start building your brand. And that also is the creative part, and where, you know, you get to become your brick and mortar.
That's the fun part.
It is,
for
absolutely.
Me, is the creativity side of it. And you know, we have a small business that has just opened here recently, and they immediately joined the chamber when they weren't even open yet, and they joined, and they've started offering a new service. So I got a message from one of the owners, and it just said, "Hey, can you advertise that we're offering this now, and what's your advice for getting the word out?" And to me, that is so much fun. So I can sit down, create a flyer, and it's like Christmas.
It is.
Because you send it to them and you sit and wait. Like, okay, what's the reaction going to be? So then when they reply, "Love it, you know, can we use this? It's yours. You know, that's what we're here for." So watching them, and then that gets their wheels moving, and things to start to progress, and to be able to be an avenue to help them in the creative side is probably one of the bright spots of what we do here for me. I mean, yeah, we love the fundraisers and the festivals and all that, but the bread and butter of what we do is helping make the member businesses successful, and getting them aimed in the right direction, and giving them the help that they need. So if I get that much joy from creating things and helping to rebrand or brand or increase branding of a new business, I can only imagine what they do, you know, what they feel.
You're absolutely right. That's one of I get that same feeling when I get to see them open for the first time. When they get to turn that key or flip the sign
Right.
that says open, or, you know, their website's done. I get that same kind of emotional, I do get emotional because I'm a little bit soft. But, and I'm also proud of them, because it's hard. It's hard. That seems like the easiest job, but it's one of the hardest, because there's been hours and hours of work go into that, and then the hours are still ahead of them. So, yeah, I totally understand, you know, what you're saying there, and that emotional connection. And I think once you see, you know, when you're talking about creating something and you see it visually, because we are visual creatures, you know, visual people, it becomes more real, you know, and
Right.
it does generate a little bit of excitement, and, you know, all of those intangibles but it's so important.
Don't have a brick and mortar, but I do have, you know, like a small side hustle with a DJ business, and I still carry saved in my phone the first radio commercial that I ever had produced for our company, just because that made it
was
legit.
real.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we weren't just, you know, somebody with a speaker and, you know, going around with, you know, whatever. We were a legit business. We were a chamber member, and we were on the radio, and that was just an exciting time. And now I look back, I'm like, back then it was sporadic and a hobby, and now, you know, it's a calendar full of stuff, which I'm thankful for. But it's funny how you can turn that side hustle can oftentimes, well, even without it being your choice, can turn into something that takes a lot of your time, and you've experienced that firsthand as well.
I have 3 companies on the side, so lots of side hustles as well. And I took a handmade business on Etsy to what I thought would just be a couple Christmas gifts into being an Etsy top seller a few years ago. So I completely understand, that side. But it becomes real, and I think I probably still have my first dollar. I definitely still have my first piece that I made, just because
Right.
one, I shouldn't have sold that. Like, it was a first piece, and you never sell your first
Right.
piece of art. But and I think that makes it a little bit relatable. All of my team that works for me, we all have side hustles, and so we
Nice.
all understand. We all understand the pains, the pressure, and the love for entrepreneurship and business. And we've experienced the ebbs and flows, as it goes. So I
Right.
think there's a little bit of relatability that comes as we're coaching our clients to say, yeah, we've been there, and you can weather this storm too.
Right. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, they have an idea for a small business, or they have a business and they're looking for some advice or some help, how do they get in touch with you?
So I'm going to give you guys my cell phone number. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. It is 740-970-0727, or my email address is kobryant@ecdi.org. Those 2 are the best way to reach me. I will answer your calls or texts very quickly, and I look forward to hearing from you.
I think that you can be a major benefit, and ECDI can be a major benefit as well for our members and the members of our community, and it's great to be able to offer those services and help the community grow in any way we can. So we greatly appreciate what you guys are doing, and the help that you're giving. You've helped us tremendously here, and as well as the members. So we hope we can collaborate more and get more businesses headed your way. And even though your office is not right here, you're never hesitant to.
Yeah, I try to be
on
here
up.
at least one day a week. And we also have some upcoming trainings that you can check out on wbcohio.org. And they kind of fit the flavor of those that are looking to start a business, or those that have been in business for several years, as well as some self-care, kind of looking at ourselves and growing that part of us.
That sometimes I think gets thrown by the wayside. We get starting to get caught up in the everydays and don't take that time to step back and do a self-assessment.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And as a part in my career now, and having a couple businesses, and then trying to run this center and be adaptive, you do need that minute to work on ourselves, and be a little bit self-aware, or kind of refresh.
Well, I appreciate you coming up. We moved some stuff around, and your schedule is a lot busier than mine. So we were glad you were able to make it up. You brought a guest with you today.
I did.
He's not even. I think he's asleep.
He is asleep on the floor.
And it's not a kid. Let's make it
It's
clear
not a kid.
that there's
It's
not
my
a kid.
dog.
There's
And
not a kid sleeping on the floor.
It's my dog, and he goes everywhere with me. I became a dog mom. Like, I don't know when that happened, but it did.
Well, we appreciate you coming in. We want to thank the listeners for listening. Until next week, when we will be joined by Alex Stapleton from Cliff Stapleton's Garage. I want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.